So at this point it's working pretty good. We shake it and we get a totally random order. I want to add a time delay between each. We know that this is sorted by swapping, and I want to add a time delay between each swap so we can actually see the swaps happening. So let's go ahead and do that using a timer. I'm going to use the timer from RSJX, or one of them actually, they have a few, called timer observable, I think. So I'll go let timer equals timer observable. There it is right there, and I'll just autocomplete that, and it imported for us. So I can then go create, and we can see the parameters here, and it's pretty obvious. We want an initial delay of 0, and I'll say 500 milliseconds for the period. 0, 500. Everything else is optional. That should do it. So we have, this is an observable thing, so we have to observe it. How do we do that? We subscribe to it. So go timer.subscribe. And in here we'll say T, arrow, fat arrow, and then the body of our function. Whenever I do one of these lambda expressions, I like to kind of type it in first, then I can just hit enter because I know I'm going to break it onto multiple lines and it looks better that way. Now we don't actually need to call it T. We don't need this variable, so I'm going to change that to an underscore, which is a pretty common convention. It's basically the parameters there, but we don't need it. Next thing, I'm going to move this while loop inside. So every time the timer wakes up, we're going to do this, right? And I better re-indent that a little better. Maybe I'll learn the shortcut for formatting. And finally, I'll get rid of the console log here. Now, at the moment, subscribe will get called repeatedly, just like the while loop gets executed repeatedly. So we're going to change this. We don't need a while loop in here. Instead, we just want an if statement. Every time the timer wakes up, we want to do one swap, or if we're totally done, then we want to unsubscribe. So let's do that. I'll go change this to an if. So if we were able to do a swap, then we get the data back and we update the people. That's pretty straightforward. Else. So here's where, if we're all done, then we want to unsubscribe. We don't care about this anymore. So to unsubscribe, actually, I need to know what the subscription is, and I didn't capture that. So let's do that. I'm going to say let timer sub equals this. Okay, and it tells me, oh, it says any. Yes. I think we need to declare what timer sub is. And as a matter of fact, yes, timer sub is a subscription. And I'm going to hit enter again to auto import that. Cool. And then finally down here, when we're done, we want to unsubscribe. So why am I not getting command line completion? Not sure. Looks okay. Oh, it still thinks it's any. I must have subscription wrong somewhere. Let's just look at our import. It didn't automatically import like it was supposed to. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So to do that, let's see if there's a bubble we can do. No, I guess I'll do it by hand. So we just need to import timer, no, not timer, subscription. Ooh, and it'll autocomplete that for me. Nice. So I just let it autocomplete it for me up here. There's an optimization we can make too, and I'm going to do it. This brings in the entire RX package, and we don't need the entire package. We only need bits and pieces. So I'm going to say RSJX subscription. That should work. Now down here, if everything's been imported, I can just, there it is. Nice. And I can just unsubscribe. Very cool. Now, this should work. It would be nice if we had some kind of protection. If there's already something going on, then we don't want Shake It to be able to be activated again. And I can think of one simple way to do that, and that's actually I'm going to make timer subscription a member rather than a variable. So let's just grab this. You'll see what I'm talking about. So our timer subscription is now a member. And so now we can just say this dot timer subscription. Right? And of course we update this down here. Cool. And finally, because it's a member variable and because it's initially empty, what we can do is we can do this. We can say, we can put the whole thing in a giant if statement. If timer sub equals null. So we're only ever going to, Shake It's only going to work if there's not currently something subscribed to that timer. Make sense? Nice. And lastly, after we've unsubscribed, we very importantly need to say, hey, you're null again. Okay. So let's see if this works. Just waiting for good old TypeScript. Oh, TypeScript, we already see a problem here, or do we? I'm not sure. Oh. So my import up above is wrong. Do I have just a typo? Yes, I have just a typo. That's the. See how the tools just capture these things so we don't make typos? There's a typo fix. Save. Now we'll just wait for the build. So if this works, I'm expecting when we click the Shake It button, we'll basically do a swap. Well, things will be unordered. We'll do a swap, and then there'll be a half-second delay. Then it'll do another swap, and there'll be a half-second delay, and there'll be another swap, and so on and so forth until the whole thing is sorted. Or at least that's the plan. Let's see if that happens. Transpil's finished. So let's do it. Shake it. Click on Shake It. Okay, and I've clicked it once, and it's sorting now. Nice. And I don't know if you caught that. I tried clicking a second time, and it ignored me, which is right. So let me do it again. I'll shake it. So we got our initial random order, and you can see it's slowly, and it's specifically, we're doing this on purpose. We're doing this nice and slow so that we can see these steps. That's not too bad. So that's a bubble sort in action. Although it's, like I said, it's not really a correct bubble sort, but it works. Sweet. So every time we click Shake It, totally random order, we're showing you those the ranks, and we can see them bubble to where they're supposed to be. Okay, that makes sense to me. Let's move on. Thank you. Okay, so next thing I'd like to do is I need to know ahead of time how many swaps it's going to take to totally sort our data. So let's add that in. Let's go to our bubble sort routine and let's add a new method. And we'll call this method num swaps required. Num swaps required. Okay, and it's going to take in a copy of the data and it's going to return a number. So we'll say data and number, and then here's the body of the method. Now let me just get rid of the underline here. I'm going to say let num swaps equals 0, and then let's just return num swaps. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to take a clone of the data. We don't want to be mutating our data, which is what our do next swap routine does. So we just want to create a copy of all of our data. And the only thing we're interested in, like when we do our sort, the only thing we care about is the rank member. So we're going to create a clone of our data, and we're just going to copy the objects and just copy the ranks. So let's do this. Let's say let my data equals data.map, right? And what are we going to do? We're going to have a bunch of items. So for each item, we're going to return an object. And actually, when we have a fat arrow followed by a curly brace, TypeScript says, "Hey, that's actually you're beginning a statement block." So we need to do it the old-fashioned way. Say return object. And what's this object going to have in it? It's going to have a member called rank. And what is rank going to be? It's going to be a copy of the original item rank. Okay, I think that makes sense. And I'll just break that up into a couple of lines so it's a little easier to read. Okay, now we can do the sort. We can do the swap. So let's do this. Let's go while what? While do next swap. Oh, this dot do next swap. Okay. We'll give it my data. And we'll say, well, this is not equal to null, then, and I'll maybe add some braces here. Num swaps ++. And I think that about does it. So yeah, what did we do? We made a clone of our data. We then called do next swap over and over again until it's totally sorted, and we know it's totally sorted when it returns null, and at that point we've counted the number of swaps. So let's actually use this on our home page, and if things are right, then we should see proper sorting. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's actually count our data. So we'll say let swaps left equals, and we're going to call this dot bubble sort service dot num swaps required, and we're going to pass in what? We're going to pass in this dot people, right? So we now have this variable called swaps left, and I'm going to change the let's change how this works. We're going to say if swaps left is greater than 0, then do the following. I'm just going to copy this out of the top of the loop, and we're going to place it in the body instead. Cool. Okay, and obviously we have one small problem here, and that's that I need to decrement my swap counter after each loop. Okay, so I'll just save that. So if this is correct, we're going to get a variable called swaps left that tells us how many swaps does it take to sort this array. And then we just, yeah, every time our timer starts up, we just use that swaps. We just decrement it, and we keep swapping until we're done. So, just waiting on good old TypeScript. And if we've done our job correctly, this should look exactly the same as it did before. So let's click Shake It, and we can see it slowly sorting. And if everything's right, it should end up with, you know, the numbers 1 through 10. So, and that appeared to work. Let's do it one more time for good luck. Awesome. Okay, so that appeared to work. So good. Let's move on to the next step. Thank you.